recording. There we go. Yeah, I talked to Mark last night.
Yes, yes.
I talked to Dr. Costas yesterday, and I told him I was talking about tomorrow, but he said, aren't I on Thursday? I said, well, what's today? Because, I mean, I don't know if you guys are like that, but I'm having a tough time figuring out what day it is. Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. A few new changes. We're going to talk today about predictive analytics, and it's something that I've been doing in practice for probably the last 22, 23 years, and we'll get into that in a minute. First thing I want to talk about is this, the pandemic. How do I prepare when they wave the green flag? One thing I do want to mention, I want to, now's the time to begin working on your business. There's no question about that. And you guys you're on these podcasts. I've been on podcasts every day. And you're going to schedule patients. This is something really, really important. And it's something I talked about on the podcast I did on Monday. But what I'm going to recommend is you get a list of all the patients that are unscheduled right now that you had to take off the schedule that are going to be needing to be rescheduled. Now, we don't know when we're going to be opening, but my hope is and my prediction has been June 15th. So we'll see how I do on that prediction. But June 15th, what I want to do is I want to have a list of patients before that. And let's just make an assumption that the average dentist in the U.S. is doing $425 an hour. So that's about $3,400 a day. Doesn't matter where you're at. It's just where you're at. So if you're doing 5,000 a day or whatever, but this is the opportunity for you to take a list of patients, get their phone numbers, their email address, and most importantly, how much work that they needed to have done that you had to reschedule. So this is a unique opportunity. At Productive Dentist Academy, we teach scheduling by productivity, not scheduling by time. And it's something I'm going to talk about, in a couple of weeks, probably, or as long as we're kind of stuck here, I'm going to be doing these. So anyway, you want to take that, and instead of scheduling 5,000 a day, you want to take and you want to put specific appointments in as you're doing this, and so that you end up at, instead of 4,000 a day, you end up at 8,000 for that day. You do that for Monday, you do that for Tuesday, you do that for Wednesday. It's your opportunity to actually schedule based on productivity. My belief is you can actually start when they wave the green flag and we can start working. You can double your productivity each day. There's no such thing as an emergency occlusal. Start with the leave space between these appointments so that your pent-up demand emergency patients can be seen. But it's really an opportunity for you to hit the ground running. Another thing that let me get this on there. You're going to create a QuickBooks file for your company. I'm going to be talking about that next week. It's critical for predictive analytics, not so much for revenue analytics, but certainly for expenses. You're going to get a link to both of my podcasts on predictive analytics that we're going to be talking about today. And hopefully you've had a chance to review that. Use this time to review your production by procedure reports. I've been talking about this forever, but it's run a report that say January. I'll tell you how I've been doing it, but I run every December. I always run a production by procedure report towards the end of December. And then I run a report. So in 2019, I run that report, and then I run the report for 18. What I want to do is I want to compare my productivity on certain procedures, and I want to see, are there any differences? Is there something that is a red flag, or something that's a positive, meaning we made a change in the way that we're training our team, and all of a sudden that made a change in our productivity. An example would be, I've taught my team when I tell them, when I'm sitting with a patient and I said tooth number 14 needs an SE or an extraction, my team is instructed to ask me, "Oh, Dr. Baird, do we need a graft on that patient?" And at that point in time is when I say, "Well, as a matter of fact, Mary, let me tell you about this. Yes, I recommend that you have a graft done." And let me explain what that is. and I tell them, and then I say, because you're going to lose 70% of the width and 40% of the height of that bone in the first year. And so it's really ideal. It's not, you don't have to, but I recommend it. Well, if we don't do that, what we find is that we're finding that we don't actually have, we don't actually do them. I forget to diagnose it. And so one year I look and we did 800 grafts, and then next year we did, 400. Well, those are the kind of things you want to look at. Same thing with indirect pulp caps, same thing with facial composites, incisal edge composites. All of these things are things that I always compare year to year. Crowns, I want to know, where are we at with that? So it's just some help, and hopefully it's something that'll, if you do it. Now, what can I do in my business now? I'm going to get back to the pandemic crisis. I know we had a couple of questions already, but you can apply for the EIDL loan, and you'll have this COVID19relief.sba.gov. If you haven't done this, I would recommend furloughing your employees immediately, making them eligible for enhanced unemployment benefits. That's an extra $600 that they'll receive, as well as, every state's different, but you're going to get a different, every state. And if somebody's making $48,000 a year, $50,000 a year or less, $24 an hour or less, they're going to be pretty much getting their full salary while they're being furloughed. I know a lot of docs are actually paying for their furloughed employees' health benefits. That's certainly something that you can do. The EIDL loan, when they're furloughed, you can use an EIDL loan actually to pay for those types of things, their insurance, and as long as it's not during the 8-week period of the PPP loan. So we'll talk about that in a minute. You can hire back on part-time hourly wage to make phone calls, assist with emergency patients. Every state's different, so look at your state's regulations on that, on the unemployment benefits. Talk to your bank for a business line of credit. Extremely important. Cash is king, and this is the time to be in that cash position. Negotiate with your vendors on a payout or delay of certain bills and invoices. I've talked about this kind of over and over again over the last 3 weeks, but maybe somebody here hasn't heard these things. Try to negotiate rent payment or talk to your bank about an interest-only loan. Our bank has allowed us to pay no interest and no payments for 120 days. So that's been a really, really nice thing to kind of get us through the situation. This is where all the questions are coming from. Apply for the Payroll Protection Plan. Do that today, but don't fund it until you're ready to open. Don't originate the loan. That can be done. You can go to the Kane Water site. They're talking about that over and over again. And you must apply for this by June 30th. The funds will be increased if the $350 million runs out. As a matter of fact, they're already asking for another $250 million. That was on the news this morning. Negotiate with your utility companies, institute an immediate spending freeze. Captain Obvious, I mean, yeah, you're not going to want to go out and do a bunch of spending right now. Now's the time to kind of hunker down and make it through this period. Make it through the 90 days. That's what we want to do. Free up as much credit as possible. Don't stop marketing completely. I will tell you, you can use social media to communicate weekly with your patients. And importantly, if you furloughed your employees, extremely important to communicate with your employees, talk to them about it. I mean, I call it confidence in the face of confusion and fear. So they need you to be confident. Everybody's worried, and this is affecting, it's affecting everybody, not just dental practices. I think we are the highest risk category of any place to work. But we're going to see how that changes over a period of time. And then utilize a revenue management tool like Abella to increase your collections now. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. One of the things I'm not going to talk about today is compassionate finance, which I've talked about for 3 weeks. Compassionate, the docs who've been using that over the last few years have been, they've got $20,000 a month coming in, $30,000 a month coming in. So they're in a nice situation. Well, nobody's in a nice situation right now, but they're in a better situation than they would be. Things are going to get better. Don't know when, but I can promise you that things are going to get better. So let's move into predictive analytics. And what does predictive analytics actually mean? You know, this is the ability to consistently and accurately predict business metrics, all of your business metrics. Predictive revenue analytics accurately predicts your productivity and expected collections in your practice. Predictive expense analytics accurately predicts your spending. And predictive income analytics allows you to accurately predict your income from operations. So these are things that, as a business, these are the kind of things you really need to be doing. And this gives you the opportunity, while we're all sitting around and wondering what day it is, this gives you the opportunity to do these things. You know, why do I need to do this? Why do I need predictive analytics? Well, 97% of dentists don't even evaluate their business on a real-time basis. Most of them are waiting on their accountant to give them their P&L a full 30 to 45 days after submitting them. That's like driving your car looking in the rearview mirror. You know, you're not able to take care of your business if it's after the fact. I want to know right now what I'm doing. Often by the time you realize there's a problem, you know, it's too late. I can remember back a time when, before I was doing this type stuff, we did an ad on that had people coming in for their pro fees. And it was it was a special deal or whatever. And what I realized, these new patients were coming in and they weren't coming to me first. And we had a significant drop in production, but I didn't really realize it for a couple of months. That's really kind of what led me into this whole thought process of business planning. When I say 97% of dentists don't evaluate their business on a real-time basis, this is because over the past 16 years with Productive Dentist Academy, and we've had probably 1,500 offices come through, and only 7 ran their business on a budget to actual, on a day-to-day basis. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to be talking about that next week in part 2. This is also something really good for your employees to listen in on. Predictive revenue, why do I need to? If you're not setting goals, you're going to be on the dental roller coaster. And I did a 5-part series in dental economics. It was 1 month up, 1 month down. I'm up, I'm happy, I'm down, I'm sad. And it sounds crazy, but that is exactly the way most dental practices run. If you don't know what you're going to produce and collect in your practice, how can you know your expenses? Well, you don't. It's an after fact. Here comes another bill. Here comes another bill. You know your fixed expenses, but your variables are the ones that are going to change based on your productivity. Not knowing expected revenues leads to inefficient scheduling. It leads to not knowing expected revenues leads to increased stress by running behind during the day. Does anybody here run behind during the day? Well, not now, but you know, when you're practicing, you know, when do you catch up? Well, we catch up, and we're going to talk scheduling here in a couple of weeks, but we catch up at lunch because we get behind, and then we catch up at the end of the day because we get behind. That's, if we don't know these things, we become a very, very ineffective and inefficient business. If you owned a furniture store, you would be running your business just like this, and there's no reason why we can't do that. So predictive revenue, what can I do? What can I do? You must know, and I'm going to kind of walk through this, you must know your monthly collections percentage. I take a 12-month average, just look at what did I produce in January of last year? What did I produce in, and when I say produce, I'm not talking about some fee that is, you know, a pie in the sky. I only want to produce, I'm producing what I can collect. So if you're writing off, I have a PPO write-off, we're talking about production being a production after the adjustment. I only want to have production based upon what could be collected. And so I look at January, I look at February, March, April, May, and I take a 12-month average of what my collection percentage is. That gives me some the beginning of predictive analytics. It gives me the beginning of being able to start looking at a number and saying, I think we can improve it. They always say if you track something, it gets better, but these are the type of things that you begin to start tracking, your collection percentage. You must know your current production per hour. This was a foreign subject 16 years ago when we started Productive Dentist Academy, but it was something that was extremely important to me. I wanted to know, what do I produce per hour? You know, on a production day-to-day basis, what do I produce per hour? Dentists are usually all over the map. You know, one month they'll produce, 400 an hour, and the next month they produce 800 an hour. What I'm going to do is, over this next few weeks, I'm going to show you how do you get very predictable so that you're producing every day is a good day. You don't have one great day, one bad day, one great day, one bad day, because you can never make up for a bad day. You can just make 2 days average. You must set daily production goals. Now, how do you do that? Well, I mean, it's based on your current production per hour. So you go back, and we'll talk about how you do that. You must set monthly production goals, and you must track your production daily. You have to do this. Tracking is critical. Your team should be involved in the tracking and know what all your goals are. My team, I don't even go to the morning meeting. This is how my team is trained. They know exactly who owes, who does everything. We could probably do something on morning meetings later, but I don't have to go. My team takes care of it. Production per hour. Let's look at that. Figure the hours you work per month over the last 3 months. So if you're working 4 days a week, that's 128 hours a month. If you're working 4.5 days, but take how many hours you worked. And this is fairly simple, but I want to go through it because most of you aren't doing it. And it's important. This is a time where you can really dial in on your office, and dial in on your productivity, dial in on your profitability, and reduce your stress. What my experience has been is dentists are extremely stressed, and business, when you're doing it in the rearview mirror, you never really know how you're doing. And so that stress is always there, and it makes it extremely hard, for me, when I'm stressed, to be the right kind of boss for my team, the right kind of person. So by getting this stuff straightened out so that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt where you stand, it just reduces business stress, and it allows you to focus on taking great care of your patients. So divide your actual production, that's collectible charges, for each month, and divide by the hours worked each month. And that's going to give you a basis to begin setting your goals. Okay. Collection percentage. Divide your collections each month by your production. That's going to give you a number. Use this percentage to predict what your actual revenues will be. Doesn't matter that you're producing 100K a month if your collections is 80%. That means you're only going to get 80,000 a month. So you want to know, what is my collection percentage on an ongoing basis? Yes, it'll vary at different times, but you want to know, so as you're predicting each month, you have something to go by. Let's say you have an average collections percentage of 97.2%, your production goal of 100,000, and you actually reach that goal of exactly 100,000. It's a little simplified. Predictive collection, you have a predictive collections. You know you're going to have $97,200. You don't know that, you're predicting that. And it's based upon not just how you feel that day, it's based on 12 months previous averages. So it's going to give you an idea. Now, if all of a sudden one month it comes in at 102%, you're going to be going, wow, that's awesome. We're really doing a good job. If it comes in at 93, you're going to be going, okay, now I'm going to have to evaluate this in the business. Why was it? Well, insurance was, we got behind on some insurance payments, or whatever it is. But now you're being predictive. Simply multiply your average hour production by the number of hours worked on that day. Let's say this is a national average. The average dentist in the country does $425 an hour. That's actually working 8 hours. That's a $3,400 a daily goal. $3,400 a day daily goal. And you want to know that. Setting your monthly goal. Simply multiply your average hourly production by the number of hours worked for the month. And we're going to get into next week, when we're talking about part 2, we're going to be talking about revenue analytics, and we're going to be talking about, getting your own QuickBooks and doing your own stuff so that you know this stuff daily. Production per hour, 425. You're working 128 hours. You multiply that out, and you have a $54,400 monthly goal. Excuse me. So goal setting, share with your entire team the goals you've set for the practice. Also figure the production per hour goal of your hygienist. This is not just for the doc. This is also for your hygienist. We started tracking, I think our hygienists were doing about 125 an hour. That'd be around $1,000 a day when they're working. Today, they're doing about 200 an hour, 220 an hour. But it allows you to look at things and say, okay, if we add this new technique or this new procedure into hygiene, like I'll use an example like, pocket sterilization using lasers, $50, boom, you're adding that into the procedures, DNA testing, all these different things. Remember, just divide their yearly average from the previous year and divide by the hours they work for the month. My chairside treatment coordinators take these numbers and set the goal in my practice management software. So it's put in the software as goals, and they know when they're booking, and this is a whole different topic, but in scheduling, they know exactly what to schedule on a daily basis. And we'll talk about that in the weeks to come. They know that on a $557 per hour goal, that the daily goal is 4,456. That's basically 557 times 8. So that's their goal. So whatever your average production per hour is, multiply it by 8. Now, this allows you to have a starting point. Now, what if you're wanting to increase your productivity per hour? Well, that's what PDA has been doing for the last 16 years. Share with your entire team the goals you have set for the practice. Also, I think I've just got an extra. Anyway, sorry about that. I had an extra slide. It is interesting to note that the average production per hour in the U.S. is 425 or 3,400 a day. Based on a 1,600-hour year, this is 680,000 a year. So you're either above it or below it. Doesn't matter where you are. It is where you are. At Productive Dentist Academy, we've used many of these principles to routinely increase doctors' productivity by 300 per hour. And we've been doing that, like I say, for 16 years, and add an additional $480,000 per year, which if you look at that, if you were the average dentist at 425, now all of a sudden you're doing $1,160,000 a year. That's just doctor production. That doesn't count hygiene. Sounds good, but how? You must, first of all, you have to be 100% committed to reaching your goals. I only have two things that I focus on. Number one, I focus on taking great care of my patients. Number two, I focus on reaching my goals, whatever they are. And we'll get into that a little bit more. You can't do it if you don't diagnose it. If you're not doing comprehensive dentistry and you don't have a good, healthy new patient flow, then there's other things that you also need to do to get to this point. What always it's kind of entertaining, but when a dentist goes to a seminar, maybe it's a business seminar or whatever, and they go, okay, here's what we're going to do. We've been doing, let's figure it out. We've been doing 300 an hour, and now I want to do 900. Well, that's not exactly the best way of going about doing this. You're going to do incremental changes as that grows, as you learn new techniques and new ways of doing things. But you got to do comprehensive exams. Use predictive analytics for expenses. I calculate my profitability incentive point. So I'm talking about profitability incentive point, or what I call PIP, because you need to know exactly how much money it takes for you to get paid. PIP is when all the bills are paid and you're paid 35% of what you collected for the month on your productivity. So you're predicting what you're going to produce next month or this month. If it's April 1st, you have a prediction of what you're going to produce based on knowledge of the past. But you're going to go forward and looking at different goals. Knowing PIP sets up all discussions about goals and productivity. Because here's the deal. If you've got expenses and your production goals don't cover your expenses, well, you're going to be out of business. Let's say you have a PIP, and again, I'm going to use simple numbers. Let's say you have a profitability incentive point of $100,000 a month. That means the office needs to collect $100,000 for you to get 35%. Or 35% for the month. And that's assuming there's no hygiene production here. So if you have a profitability incentive point of 100,000, you're going to take home 35% of that because you did 100,000 and based on your expenses. Let's assume you do have hygiene, and hygiene has an average of 20,000 per month in the past, which breaks into a certain production per hour so that you know how many hours your hygiene is working. But you need to produce 80,000 for the office to reach $100,000 PIP, profitability incentive point. So you'd have in that calculation 80,000 times your 35%, which equals $28,000 in your salary. So at the beginning of the month, you know if hygiene does 20 and you do 80, that you're going to make a check for 28 in that month. But you know it ahead of time. You know it before the month starts. Average production per hour is 625 based on 128 hours. So for you to do 80,000, you've got to do 625 an hour. If your average is 500 an hour, well, you got to work 160 hours, not 128. So that's telling you what I have to work. How much do I have to work to reach that profitability incentive point? Or you can choose to raise your goal to that 625. And those are the things, that's how you evaluate every single month. This allows you to know what you must do to make 35% of what you collect, like an associate. Everything above that number, everything above the profitability incentive point. So if you know it's 100 and you do 120, guess what? I can pay some bonus to my team with that, but I'm not going to pay bonus to my team if it's below 100,000 because I'm not making what I should be making. So everything above that number is profit for being an owner. You must be committed to producing whatever it takes to reach that PIP. What about vacation? This is a great question. And this is something most dentists have never taken more than a week off. Why? Because they have so much overhead. Average overhead in the US is like 75%. So people step back and they go, God, I can't take time off. Well, what you do, and you can start to load, and we'll talk about this in scheduling, but you can begin to load a month. For instance, there have been times where I would go on a 2-week vacation, and I would do it the end of July and the 1st of August. So I've split it into 2 months so that I'm not getting hit with 2 months of no production. Or I say 2 months of no production, 2 weeks of no production in 1 month. Okay. So I step back. I say, okay, I need to preload this month. So as I start seeing bigger procedures, bigger cases, I literally start to push them into the month that I need higher production. For instance, I know that instead of working 128 hours, I'm only going to be working 80 hours a month. So my production per hour has to be much higher during that month for me to reach my PIP. Hopefully that makes sense, because you're going to adjust your hourly production and your team will come together and you're going to be looking at that and saying, okay, we need to put bigger procedures in this month. We don't need to do the occlusal composites this month. We need to do the higher end type dentistry. All right, let's go into question and answer right now. And let's take a look here.
Yeah, you bet, Dr. Baird. We got quite a few that came in. Some of them are a little long, so I'll try to
We've got time.
Get to the meat of the question. All right. First one is, if the PPP loan is part of today's discussion, my question is, how do you handle the PPP if your employees already filed and are collecting unemployment?
It actually has no effect. The PPP is actually, you want to get funding for that when you're going back to work. So let the government make your payments, make their employee payments. This is an 8-week period after you get funding for the PIP. So they can still get unemployment. You can still apply for PIP. When it's funded is when you want to be going back to work, because that next 8 weeks is going to be a critical time. And the unemployment benefits run out July 31st. The opportunity to apply for the PPP loan is actually June 30th. I recommend going ahead and applying now and working with your bank saying, I don't want to fund this till I'm going back to work. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense.
Excellent. Thank you. The next one is from Dr. Matt Talcott. Hey, thanks for joining us again, Dr. Talcott. Happy to have you here. And okay, so An AGD webinar stated applicants don't get to determine funding date and that all the funds need to be dispensed for payroll by June 30th. Do you, Dr. Baird, does he recommend applying now and taking whatever they give us or whatever or whenever they give it, or wait until May 1st or May 15th with the risk of funds now?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I don't think the funds are going to run out. There's been new guidance last night that that says, you know, you can tell. I mean, banks, every bank is doing things a little differently. They're not all doing the same thing. The AGD, the ADA, the website, and what they've done with their stuff, it's changing every day. So you hear something and you go, oh my gosh. You go to the Kane Waters website and they have confirmed this, that you can. And if this bank that you've done your PIP with, and I'm going to PIP, your PPP loan, not your PIP, your PP, the bank you've done that. If you're going to a big bank like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, these big banks, you're getting a line of thousands of people. I mean, literally thousands. My little bank here, my local bank that is also an SBA bank, you can go to them and fill out the application. You can get funded or have them wait for funding whenever you want, as long as the funds are dispersed by June 30th. That has to happen. So different things. If the bank's telling you that, then I'd apply now and I'd fund it later. Otherwise, it makes really no sense. If you get the PPP loan now and you spend that money and then you get back to work, you know, you're going to have a difficult time. So everybody's saying something different. Kane Waters is the people that I've been following. I've listened to the ADA. I've listened to the Chamber of Commerce. I've listened to the SBA. I've listened to all of them, and they just keep getting new guidance. And so one thing I can pretty well assure you, they're going to keep funding this. They've already talked about another $250 billion going into that fund. But I would apply now and just get the money, but when you go back to work.
All right, perfect. Dr. Brett Rhodes asks, looks like a lot of banks won't allow you to defer. They get paid 5% when the money transfers. Some banks will, but you have to have a previous relationship with them to meet their standards.
Yep, every bank's different. So you're right.
Perfect. Okay, Dr. Allure asks, Dr. Baird mentioned sharing your goals with your team. I did that and it backfired. They started playing with the schedule and will stop production at 4,000 if that's the goal / per day. And they have put in fake treatments like sealants when they were not covered. I'm really scared to share the money goals. How do you present this to them and make sure they do the work for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Without my team knowing my goals, I wouldn't produce what we produce. And I think that, first of all, if my goal is to do 4,000 and they put in sealants or something like that for me to reach that goal of 4,000, then I'm fine with that. Now, if they're, you know, my deal is I want to reach that $4,000 goal every single day. So here's the thing that is very counterintuitive when you start talking about predictive analytics and setting goals. What I don't want to have happen, and I'll say this at our programs all the time, I'll say, okay, you have a 3-unit bridge, and this 3-unit bridge, the patient comes in, it's Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and they want to get it done right now, you know? And my question is always, do you do it? And everybody, all, you know, 300 people on this deal are going to say, yes, I do it right now. Okay, well, that's not what I do, because I only have 2 goals. One is to reach my goal, and one is to take great care of my patients. And in reverse order, I take great care of my patients and reach my goal. But so what do I ask myself? What question do I ask myself? If I have a goal of $4,000 today, or in my case, you know, 8,000 or 20,000, whatever it is, and I've got this bridge sitting here wanting to be done, and I'm on goal for today, what do? I look at tomorrow. Am I on goal for tomorrow? Yep. And I've only worked Monday and Tuesday for the last 15 years. So, it's what I do. So then I look at next Monday and I'm on goal. And the next Tuesday I'm on goal. And then I look at the next week and the next Monday and the next Tuesday. If I'm on goal for the next 3 weeks, then I'm doing it today. And it'll be just an add-on to my daily goal. I'm on goal today, but I'm going to go ahead and do this extra $3,000. Great. But what if tomorrow I'm not on goal, but today I am? I'm going to go, Bob, hey, are you going to be around tomorrow? They'll say, well, yeah or no, but they'll say, yeah, I am. I said, I tell you what, I don't have the time that I'd like to do it this afternoon, but let's get you in. And I know my schedule. Let's get you in tomorrow at 2:00 and let's get that done tomorrow. Guess what I just did? I pushed $3,000 or $4,000 worth of production into tomorrow, which puts me on goal for tomorrow. So I'm always constantly doing that. But without my team knowing these numbers, I would be lost. I want my team is responsible for my schedule. And we'll talk about that in scheduling in the weeks to come so that you have a better understanding of that and what we talk about at Productive Dentist.
All right, perfect. This one is from Dr. David Kelly. The PIP looks like it's geared toward the doctor's income. What incentives do you have for staff to help you reach your PIP?
That's great. We have a couple of things, and if you'll make a note to me, Stephen, that we'll talk about that too in the future. But we have what's called a PIP bonus. So when we get to PIP, everything above that, we share 20%, and it's on a 3-month rolling average. So this is some of the stuff that we do at PDA, and we teach you how to do and help you track those things. So we have a 3-month rolling average. So because, as goals go, oh, we're not going to make it this month, the heck with it. Let's just put it all into next month. That's how goal setting fails, because that's what you're talking about. Your team kind of moves things around, and we're not going to make it today, so let's move it to tomorrow. I don't look at it that way. What we do is that 3-month average. So my goal is to reach that goal every single month. So they get 20% of everything above that PIP number. So if it's 100,000, great. We'll take, and we do 120 in collections. That's $20,000. I take 20% of that, $4,000, and that becomes my bonus for team based upon hours worked, based on, a whole bunch of stuff that we work with you on, in the future. So hopefully that answers that question.
Excellent. We got a lot of those good ones today. Dr. Austin Lee asks, what are your thoughts on a hygienist being on percentage of production compensation, not an hourly salary?
We have a combination. So we have an hourly with a production goal also that can raise their salary. So they'll get a piece, everything that they do above a certain, they have a base amount. And what you'll find is if you do have a productive, if you're paying them based on production, that they'll usually do above their base by following through. So I do that, but we have a combination. They're paid X amount an hour, but most of them don't make their hourly wage. Most of them make more than their hourly wage because it's based on production.
All right. Dr. Sonia Mayer, she asks, your suggestion for associate, what are your suggestions for an associate that are W-2 and unemployment? Can they apply for enhanced unemployment benefits?
They are W-2. Let me think. They're not an independent contractor, so they're a W-2 employee. They can actually apply for unemployment. They can. Now they'll only get up to the amount. I mean, you're only talking about $4,000. Plus, you're going to probably pay them based on collections over the next period of time. But yes, they can file for unemployment. Independent contractors, you're not going to include them in your PIP calculations, but employees you will up to 100,000. And don't just count that 100,000. You also have to. It can go above 100,000 because you can also include in that. You can include their retirement benefits. You can include insurance. You can include a bunch of different things. So it can actually be above the 100,000, but you can only count salary up to the 100,000.
All right, perfect. All right, we're going to do two more, and then we're going to put the rest to the back end of today's presentation so we kind of stay on time here. So if an employee has applied for UI, can he or she still work reduced hours and get UI? Should he or she be paid through payroll?
You can, it depends on what state you're in. Every state has different rules and regulations. I believe California, they said no. In Texas, yes. So you're going to have to check with your unemployment office and find out how that works in your own individual state. I don't know all the 50 states.
All right, perfect. And we'll do one more from Dr. Michelle Johnson. So you say to communicate with your team. Unfortunately, I have some that don't want to communicate or do anything associated with work while they are on unemployment, unless I pay them under the table. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Baird?
When they're on unemployment, they don't want to talk to you. Well, I'm talking about when we get back, starting back to work. So, once you bring them back in, what my suggestion is now you have a meeting and you begin to discuss all of these things with them then. If you're out, you can send them this. If they want to listen to it, they'll listen to it. If they don't, they don't. But for people who don't do stuff because of money, I only hire what I call uncommon employees, meaning they do whatever it takes to be successful in the business. And I will tell you that my team and the way that they work together, if somebody didn't want to play at their level, they don't get to play on our team. So, I rarely ever had to fire anybody because the team would basically fire them on their own. So if everybody, once you understand this productivity, it's not about money. You have to talk to your employees about, this is about helping more people. If you're doing more dentistry, you're actually helping more people. And I don't ever look at it, and of course this is a business discussion, but it's not about business. This is about taking great care of your patients. This is about great communication skills. This is about all the things that you have to do. And when you do that and you give your team responsibilities for these things, all of a sudden it becomes more than just suck and spit in the back. They become an integral part into their own salary and them making more money and helping more people. So that's the way I look at it. I always get these questions, so I'm very used to them. But as you change the philosophy of your practice, as you change the way that your team works with you, everything changes, and your productivity does go up because of it.
Perfect. Well, I'll let you go ahead and continue with the presentation here, and we'll get to everybody else's questions when we hit the top of the hour.
I'm just going to go through the Abella conversation, and then it shouldn't take us 10 minutes, and then we'll answer some more questions.
Sounds perfect.
Maybe I'm going to answer some more questions. Okay. Abella. People are saying, what the heck's Abella? Well, this is an account to qualify, kind of to tell you guys, you'll see down here in the bottom CFI. CFI is Comprehensive Finance, Inc. It's a C corporation. We have two products. I started that company 9 years ago after the 2008 timeframe, when things really were very similar to what it's going to be now, although today may be worse than the 08 financial crisis. And Abella is a more recent software development for the company. We've had Compassionate Finance out there for years, and that is a way to do your own in-house financing. And if you guys have questions about that, you can send, put a message out. We'll send this information to you. You can go to info@compassionatefinance.com, and that's going to talk about doing your own in-house financing. I'm not going to talk about that today, but I am going to talk about Abella because it's something that you can do right now that will bring in collections, and I'm going to share with you about that. When was the last time you upgraded your patient AR billing process? The answer is probably never, because there's never really been a way to do it. Most people still, send out statements. The truth is, paper statements are suboptimal, expensive, relatively ineffective, and not preferred by patients. In phone calls, if people owe you, it's intrusive, ineffective, plus they see your name. that Cranberry Dental Center, nope, I'm not answering that. I know I owe money. But interestingly enough, 88% of the patients we did a survey, wanted an easier way to pay. So we've got to find a way to make it easier. And I'll share with you some of the information. And here's, in most dental practices, you have two people. One person who's doing two things. They're working with the insurance company, and they're also doing accounts receivable. So they're calling patients. So 83% of their time is actually on hold with insurance companies and talking to them and trying to figure out benefits. 17% of their time is actually doing collection calls, and they always work the list at the top of the list and work their way down. And, they never get to the $81 or the $52 or the $118. They never get to those. And so what ends up happening is you just say, well, we're going to collect that next time they come in. Well, bottom line is it doesn't happen. So Abella, introducing Abella, it collects more money faster without sending statements and making phone calls. Interesting. Managing patient AR is a breeze with Abella's integration. Multi-location management, we work with offices. I think the largest one has 150 offices. Maybe we're doing it with bigger offices than that. Submit patients to Abella by the click of a button. Choose to skip or exclude patients. So, hey, my brother came in, I don't want to send him a statement. And so you can determine who you want to send statements to and who you don't in the software. Preview your patient AR batch before you submit it. And it has automatic invoicing. Patients receive a link to view and pay their invoice via text message and email. It's frequent, it's friendly, it's consistent. Every 5 days, they get a message until the patient pays, or up to 90 days. This is an example. It's Mansfield Dental Center. It's branded for you. You have a balance due with our office. For questions, call our office. To view your invoice, pay off your balance, or choose from a menu of payment options, click the button below. So they're able to look at their invoice right there. Abella makes it effortless for patients to pay. Click to view the invoice. They can select pay in full or monthly payments, so they can actually pay through the financial portal that Abella gives you. They can pick the payment day, they can pick the payment info, and they can enroll in auto pay. Also, this is bidirectional integration, meaning payments that are made. We go into the Dentrix, EagleSoft, Open Dental, 95% of the software is out there. We go in, pull out your accounts receivable. It's batched together. You pick who you want to send the statements to. It goes out, and it continues to go out until they pay. When they do pay, if they pay us, then obviously we deposit it in your account. It goes directly. We post those payments directly to your software, and the payment goes through us and then right to you. Allocate provider payments, specific providers in the practice. Payments you collect in your practice are synced back to Abella, meaning if you collected $100 and the patient came in and paid you, Abella will recognize that and quit sending statements. I mean, it's amazing software. Abella notifies patients of failed payments and does pre-collections, meaning, hi, Amanda, our records show that your open balance due to our office is more than 60 days past due. Please pay your invoice or set up a monthly payment plan. Failure to pay or set up a payment plan in the following 15 days could result in your account being transferred to a collection agency for questions. Call us at our office. There's robust analytics, dashboards that you can look at all this stuff, from payment posting, collection numbers and dollars, deposits, average days to collect, and a lot more that you can download. This is an example of Course in Dentistry. They're up in just outside of Denver. They had 300 accounts in 90 plus AR. So the decision to go forward with Abella was a no-brainer. The same collections results would have taken a team member months, mostly driven by unanswered and unwanted calls to the patient. The return on investment for our group was very high, and our patients now have an easy way to pay. That was Cali. With Abella, we collected from people with accounts 2 to 3 years old that ignored traditional methods, phone calls and mailings. It's amazing. They collected $70,669 over a couple month period, and it was all over 90. Now, Abella starts working, with your 30, 60, 90, 120, but this was just on their over 90. They collected $70,000. And this is a time where, I'll give you an example. Heartland Dental is, they furloughed all their employees. Nobody's working collections now. Most offices out there, Nobody's doing collections now. This is automated, so we can get it into your system and it can start making collections. You would think people aren't paying right now. Wrong. They are paying. We have not seen a dip in Abella payments at all. So, I mean, I look in town here, my daughter, she's a school teacher. They're still getting their salary. There's a lot of people still getting salaries. Unemployment benefits, they're actually as high as their regular salaries. This is 150 location DSO. We collected $4.5 million, 2.1 million in 90 plus. But the big number for me here is 53% collected of 90 plus days. And, a lot of people, when it gets out 90 days plus or 120, whatever, okay, it's time to turn over to a collection agency. I wouldn't do that. I'd use Abella and before I ever turned anything over to a collection agency. MB2 Dental, Abella is amazing. It saves our offices time, and most patients pay before a statement could even be delivered to the mailbox. Our collections have been at an all-time high since implementing Abella. Luis Guzman, he's the director of practice integration at MB2. They had a 30% increase in AR collected, 60% decrease in cost to collect, and 72% decrease in days sales outstanding. This is the thing that, is kind of crazy, but it's a perfect opportunity for you. We have completely waived the setup fee, and we have completely waived the $299 software licensing agreement. So Abella does not take a percentage of what's collected. Like some of the collection agencies, they do not do that. We do not do that. It basically just $299 a month. We're not trying to replace an employee. We're trying to augment that employee. So until July 1st, we've waived all fees, meaning it's absolutely free to you to do this. And my suggestion, we've got a couple hundred people now. We're training, we're doing software integration. That takes about 15 minutes per person, sometimes up to 30 minutes, depending upon the software. And we've got a lineup of 200 people that are going through training. We've trained over, I think, 60% of them now. But if you want to take advantage of this, and because this is money that is just going to be coming into you, that's going to help your business while you're not in there. So we completely waived it. Now, what happens July 1st? We would start charging the $299 unless you tell us, hey guys, don't want to do it. I'm okay. Appreciate your help. And we're not interested anymore. That's fine. We don't care. But there's no obligation to continue beyond the trial. So this is this is an opportunity where we're doing the work and we're not going to get paid for the 90 days. And I think it's something that can actually help you guys. And so that's why we're doing it. You can send an email with a request, and I would recommend picking up your phone in your hand right now and enroll info@abellaar.com. Put your practice name, your practice phone number, your main practice contact for setup and training. You'll complete an electronic order form that's emailed to you. We'll set you up for integration, download training and user guides. Truthfully, there's not a lot of training because this is automated. And then you can start using Abella. But I'd pick up your phone and I'd put info@abellaar.com and I'd send something in because this is not going to cost you any. So this concludes what I've got for today. So let's answer some more questions, Stephen.
Operators are standing by, right, Dr. Baird, for that Abella offer right now. And I will say, just watching these webinars with you, I think that is an absolute no-brainer deal right now to go ahead and get Abella working for you and trying that out. And then listening to some of the other things you say about kind of getting in the mindset of offering comprehensive finance to your patients. So we didn't talk about compassionate finance today, but I'm going to go ahead and include Monday's webinar too in today's email list. Just if you're curious about some of the things Dr. Baird has done with compassionate finance, give that a watch at about the 40 seconds. I'll put a time code in there so you can watch if you're interested in hearing more about compassionate finance. But yeah, you bet. So why don't we go ahead and we'll do some more questions. All right. Can we apply for both disaster business SBA loan and PPP loan also?
Yes. Yes, you can. They just have to be used for different things. The PPP is for payroll. The disaster relief, the EIDL loan is you want to spend it on something different. Whatever whatever you want to spend it on, but just don't spend it on payroll.
All right, perfect. Jeff Ash asks, so you are recommending using unemployment until you are back to work, then use PPP funds?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And that's what Kane Waters is recommending. That's what multiple large accounting groups are recommending. So yeah, that's what that's what Heartland's doing. That's what they're letting the government pay. And I'd much rather do that.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. If you have a 1099 employee, will that count towards PPP?
No, 1099s do not, because the 1099 employee can actually file for their own PPP.
Okay, and Dr. Randall Smith, he wants the secret sauce here. Can you share your specific hygiene pay formula, please?
My pay formula, please. I tell you what we'll do. I will, I don't have it right here in front of me, but bottom line, I will post that on our notes in a future webinar. I'm sorry I don't have that with me. I don't want to say something and it not be correct, but I apologize for that.
All right, perfect. What should we do about, I think we kind of went over this earlier, but maybe we'll just reiterate. What should we do about some banks like Wells Fargo and Citibank stop accepting applications?
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Go to a different bank. I mean, just go to the local banks, the smaller banks in smaller towns, like here in Granbury. We had a friend went in and they own a couple of different businesses. She walked in, filled out the application, took her about 20 minutes. Bingo, it's a done deal. You know, working with the big banks right now is, you know, it's a whole different animal. It's a whole different animal.
All right, great. Got a question here about Granbury Dental.
All right.
You said you only are working 2 days a week. Please tell us about your practice. How many days your office is open a week? How many associates do you have? How many RDH assistants, front desk personnel? Thanks.
Well, the office, Granbury Dental Center, I started 35 years ago. We now have an office that has 15 treatment rooms. There's 4 docs. I have to qualify that I put the handpiece up last May, so it's been almost a year. Although I'm still working a day, a month, to go in and do some surgeries and just do some fun stuff. So what I'm talking about now, we have 4 docs, we have 5 hygienists, we have, and we do about $5 million a year in revenue on that. So we have our team overhead. This will be something interesting. The average team overhead of the office runs 20% or less. So, and I've worked Mondays and Tuesdays, but produce about $2 million a year for the last 15 years, just working Mondays and Tuesdays. So we teach that at Productive Dentist on how, you know, old dentists, you know, they give up time. You know, they give up money for time because they need more time. And young dentists will work 9 days a week just so that they can make money. My deal was I wanted to find a way to do both. And so what I did is as my production per hour increased, I reduced my hours working and my income never went down. And so I started at 4.5 days and I went all the way to 2 days and my income never went down. It kept up. And that's really the thing. The big philosophy that we teach at Productive Dentist Academy is how to increase your productivity. And you can work 4 days a week if you want to, or you can work 3, or you can work 3.5, or you work 2.5. So that's what we do. Hopefully that answers some questions. So
perfect. All right, we're going to get into some Abella questions now. Dr. Rodney Cost asks, with Abella, who dictates the details of the payment plans? Does the patient use compassionate finance to set up the payments? Thanks.
It's actually part of the Abella software. It's 0 interest, so the patient can pay, you know, set it up. Now, if it's, and we have some specific guidelines on a practice where if it's up to $1,000, you can only pay out, or, you know, pay for 12 months or something. You know, we're trying to keep the payments under $100. So if they owe $3,500, we may let them go 48 months, or, you know, so it's based on the amount that they owe and the amount of the payment. So, and we give you suggestions. You can say, you can make changes to whatever you want on that. But we have best practices, on what we recommend.
Absolutely. Will Abella replace sending paper statements?
Yes, it will, except for people who do not have email or text messaging. And then, at least you'll know who they are, and you might have to lick a few envelopes and stamps, but it's so much more efficient. I'm telling you, we collected over $77,000. You saw Corson did, I think, 70,000. We collected 77,000 in 28 days. We had a huge backlog of over 120 and over 90. And some of it was 2 years old, 3 years old. And it's the way patients want to communicate now, on your phone. This is where we live now, And so it's so much easier. And initially what you'll find is they're going to call the office and ask questions, and that's okay. But after you've had this in place for a few months, you're not even phone calls. They just make the payment with credit card, with, debit card, with HSA, with, they can pay any multitude of ways. And most of them are going to pay in full, but some do take payment plans, and they pick that. We picked up 3,500 from 2017, 16. I mean, so it had been 3 years. We gave up on that $3,500. They set up payment plans. Now they're paying. So it's to me, everything that comprehensive finance, every product that we come up with is based upon a need that I see in dentistry, in my dental practices, in and who I work with. So that's the thought process there.
I couldn't agree more. Everybody used to say content is king. I always say convenience is king. And I have paid through Abella. I've had the situation where I got billed $64. I think it was 6 months later when they caught me on a phone call versus 3 weeks later when it was $40 and I pressed the button. And, I'd gone to my dentist in between those times and it never came up. So, it was like that. And so, shout out to Dr. Nelson Lowe, who uses Abella, and better for it.
Awesome.
All right. Also, is the $299 a month fee plus the 2.5% processing fee, or does the patient pay that fee? So I guess it's kind of, what is that 2.5% processing fee?
It is processing fee, just like they're using a credit card or something like that. So it's going to cost you 2.5%. for that. And that's just basically a pass-through expense that we have. And so you're actually paying, we can't tack that on to the total amount that they owe. So it does come out of that, but it's just like they paid you with American Express in your office.
All right. And we got a note from the chat from Charles Brown, who's the COO over there and kind of the head of Abella. He says that, yes, the 2.5% is deducted from all payments processed via Abella. So that would go to the next question as well. Will we get charged the 2.5% processing fee through the free trial? Yes, you would, just to cover that fee. All right. I purchased my practice in March of 2019. If I didn't take salary last year, but started on January of 2020, can I include that in my PPP loan request as an exemption?
I would talk to the bank about that, whichever bank you're using. As long as you were in business from February 15 on, and I think it's there, you even can use a different time frame from January 1 to February 15 as payroll. So I don't know. I wish I could answer that, but I would talk to the bank. They're going to give you some suggestions. I would talk to my accounting firm and find out too what they suggest.
All right, perfect. Just one more note from Charles Brown over here in the comments. He said, the practice can configure the payment plan options that are available to the patient.
Great. Thanks, Charles.
All right. Here we go from Dr. Michelle Johnson again. According to my PPP application, it said if you get funds from EIDL before PPP, then all those funds are subtracted from PPP. What is your understanding of this?
If you get the $10,000 grant, it is subtracted from the PPP amount. That can be forgiven. So that's it. The EIDL loan can be used for other things. And they say, what if you wanted to use the EIDL loan? What if you got a full funding for your EIDL loan to pay payroll? You can roll that into a PPP loan into the PPP, which is the SBA's payroll protection plan. So that's my understanding of it. I don't know if that answers that question or not, but I'm sorry.
Right. All right. How does Abella work with Care Credit?
Gosh, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's kind of an after the fact situation there. It's kind of your Care Credit's gone through and everything, and we're just collecting the remainder.
We'll just collect the remainder. If it's an account receivable in your practice, then Abella will handle it. Whereas Care Credit, they're going to pay you and give you a 10% discount, and that's when they're going to do that. So.
Okay. Does Abella send out statements after all insurance payments are entered? What is the criteria for timeline of sending statements?
We'll get Charles to answer that one. He'll type it in there and we'll answer it because he knows this stuff. Since he wrote the software, he has a real good understanding. So let's go to another question, then we'll come back and Charles will answer that.
All right, perfect. Yeah, and Charles, you can just put that in the chat and I'll read it when I see it. Okay, this one is from Dr. Virginia McMillan. Hello, Virginia. Welcome back. I've seen you in our Facebook group and you have attended a few of these webinars, so welcome back. What is the best way to introduce the Abella to patients? A letter?
No, I think once they start seeing it, and we can probably put something at the top, because of a patient's request and wanting an easier way to take care of statements, we're introducing this. I think that could be put in the introduction, but I wouldn't spend time sending a letter out. I would maybe surprise them a little bit and go, hey, here's a statement. Oh, this is neat. Went right to my email. I think that I know patients love not having to deal with a human being. They just don't want to talk to anybody. Now, if they have a question, they're going to call and ask questions. But if not, and most of it is insurance didn't cover what we thought, or this didn't cover, and they can look at their invoice and it'll explain it to them, but they may want to have a phone call. But most people, once they get used to this, they don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to make my payment. I know I'm done, and that's the way it works.
I want Spectrum to be on Abella. I want my energy company, everybody. I mean, it's so easy to use. Okay, so we have a note back from Charles for that last question. Good. The only patients who are shown on your AR list in Abella are the patients who do not have any open claims or active payments with the practice. So that would be post-insurance, kind of everything's figured out. Now we're just looking at kind of those remaining balances, and we're going to push that out. And you can whitelist anybody on there who you say, oh, that's my brother-in-law. I think Dr. Baird probably mentioned that. And you can go from there to send out those notifications.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. All right. This isn't a question, but I will take any testimonial praise we can get from Michelle Johnson. If you don't already have Abella or Compassionate Finance, it's a no-brainer. Just do it. I highly recommend it. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. Appreciate that.
Thank you. We do it.
All right. And that'll bring us to the end of kind of the questions in the chat today. I don't think I missed anybody here. I'm going to go through one more time. I think maybe some of these were kind of covered. Okay, here we go. I got one more. How do you encourage your hygienists to raise awareness in oral systematic health? And thank you for supporting them with this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my hygienist, what was the first part of that question?
How do you encourage your hygienists to raise awareness in oral systemic health?
Well, our hygienists are kind of on the front line of oral systemic. You'll see Michelle Hudson, she's out lecturing all over the country about it. So we instituted this and we began talking about the oral systemic link probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, by doing DNA testing. And I mean, we've always had a real robust hygiene program, and we've always talked about this oral systemic link. So my hygienist, I mean, when it comes down to a conversation that you would have with your hygienist, what I would say is, you know, this is life saving. You know, when we start understanding the bacteria that can affect, you know, increased risk of heart attack, stroke, not only increased risk, but causative for a heart attack or a stroke. Also, direct correlation with Alzheimer's. When you start having the materials there and communicating with your hygienist, it really gives them a whole new reason to practice. Really, it's different than just I'm scraping teeth. So I think once they get enrolled in it, they'll take off with it. And that's what we saw. That's when our hygiene production per hour went from 125 an hour, 130 an hour to Michelle does 250, 280, 300 an hour. And it's empowering because they're actually helping patients, and they're doing it because they know it's true. And there is that oral systemic link. I hope that answered, but it really is. Once they get enrolled in this, and the thought process behind it, they become your biggest advocate with your patients.
All right, perfect. And that will bring us to the end of today's program. I have a few notes for y'all real quick before we wrap it up for the day. Actually, this is a good question since we have Charles in the chat here. Charles, this question comes from Dr. Wang. Weave software also has a payment function. What are the advantages of Abella over Weave? So hate to put you on the spot there, but I know Abella is a one-of-a-kind software. So why don't I kind of go through some notes real quick, and then we'll get that answer from Charles. So yes, today's presentation is being recorded. I will email you over a copy of today's program, and I'm going to go give you Monday's program as well. There's some great information on compassionate finance in there. Also a link to Dr. Baird's podcast. New episodes come out every Monday. A great one to listen to with this particular webinar is episode 55, Predictive Analytics Part 1. And then to prepare for next week, go ahead and listen to episode 56, Predictive Analytics Part 2. Tomorrow we will have more content for you. We are going to have on a guest, Dr. Mark Costas with Dr. Baird. They're going to be doing some discussing of, current events and just two thought leaders chatting it up, and a great chance for you to interact and ask questions of them. info@abellaar.com. That is a great place to go ahead and email us to get started on that free trial. info@compassionatefinance.com. We also have a great offer over there where we are waiving that setup fee and not billing you until you do your training and practices reopen. So do take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, Mark, when I talked to him yesterday, Mark had just got done talking to somebody with infectious disease at University of Colorado, and his podcast is the most listened podcast in the world. So he's got a lot of intellectual value to bring to the discussion tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to that. We've made this available for up to, I think 1,000 people, and we're pushing that envelope for our webinar. So, but if we have to raise that number, we will. So no worries.
Yeah, you are getting dangerously close to the maximum level that Zoom can support, Dr. Baird. Everybody wants to kind of hear your thoughts on these things. Dr. Wang, I did not receive anything back from Charlie, but if you want to go ahead and put your email in the chat, or I'll look through your email through the registration list, we'll get you an answer. I know there's nothing else like Abella, so I'll tell you we'll get you some of the specifics of why we can do what we can't.
They can send, my understanding, they can send statements, so can Solution Reach. They can send out a statement, but they don't have the payment portal portion.
Yeah, and potentially maybe some integration as well. I kind of think that's just me riffing, but that's what I believe as well.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I look forward to tomorrow's with Mark Costas, and stay safe.